always usually go out to transportation and make sure that the logging of the reimbursable miles for transportation that we receive through our funding formula is accurate, that we only get reimbursed for home to school or school to educational kind of activities. We do not get reimbursed on the miles for athletics, only school-related educational day kind of activities are what's included in that. So those are the two things that we mentioned in the pre-audit. This year they came back in July, and what things we covered is they read our minutes. It's interesting to see an outsider's view. We sit here each month and talk, and we go about our business, and they'll pick up on one little thing like, oh, that was, that's interesting that you pick up on that, and they'll ask questions and look at those kinds of things. They audit all of our federal awards, which we get around $3 million in federal dollars in the form of grants. They'll audit title and making sure we're compliant with title. They look at IDEA, which is the funds we get for special needs students. They also look at our debt, make sure we're being compliant, we're making our payments. They check the board appropriations, they look at the budget, all those kinds of preliminary things. They also prepare a schedule for our fixed asset side, provide them with the information when we do fixed asset depreciation schedule, which is always fun. And they test accounts payable, so they'll go and say, they'll pull a check register and say, I want to see that check and what's behind it. And they check that for highly qualified teachers, we've got a reporting requirement that our teachers have to, Rich can speak to this if there's any questions, but making sure that our teachers are up with their certifications and have all the things they need to be highly qualified. They check payroll records, our retirement piece of our budget, they check on those kinds of things. And then they come back that was a 3-day audit in July, and then they'll come back for another week in September and finish up. They'll check the cash, make sure that my bank statements are all balanced, that there's a appropriate recording of all of the receivables, and making sure everything's in order. We also have a new GASB, which is Government Accounting and Standards requirement, and that is to identify our ending fund balances in all funds. And last month, the board approved a resolution saying that I could go ahead and assign those, and they are, there's 5 different categories. They're assigned, unassigned, it's an accounting function, and it's supposed to clarify more what the ending fund balance is going to be used for, but it actually really complicates the issue because they want us to categorize it based on certain criteria. So we'll do that, we'll comply, but it won't have much of an impact on the overall reporting of our financial statements. And this year, in April, my department, the accounts payable department, under my direction, have gone to an automated payable system with U.S. Bank, and it's kind of much like what you do with your online banking if you do that. Many things are electronic. The approvals are electronic. The signature signing is electronic. We have different levels of security. We are in the implementation stages, and I just want to point out to the board that we believe we're going in the right direction. With less staffing, we're thinking that it's economically more feasible to have someone else physically cut the check and mail it, do those kinds of things on our behalf, and file it electronically so we all can access it rather than living in the paperwork living in a file cabinet that is always misfiled and those kinds of things. The auditors took a snapshot of June 30th, and we were in the implementation stages. And in retrospect, I would have waited till July 1 because we are in the implementation stages. We don't have the bugs worked out yet. So I believe that there might be something that comes out of it. They'll say, this is what we saw on June 30th, and which is true. But I will have a statement. This may come out in the audit when we see it in December. But I'll have a statement to say, this is where we were at that time. This is what we've done to correct those things, and here's where we are now. And they said that's allowable. I will be able to update what we've done since June 30th. So don't ever implement anything new mid-year. Yeah. And that's about all I have for the audit. I would say by the time they come back in September, we'll be ready for them. We've also secured their services to come in prior to that to tell us where do you see that those checks are supposed to be, instead of waiting till implementing it and maybe doing it in the wrong places and waiting for them to come back in September and say, no, you did it wrong. We've all acquired their services in August as we're finishing up the implementation to make sure that they agree that these were the best places. Who better to tell you how to put the checks in place is the people who check them. So, and they've agreed to do that, which I think will be beneficial for us, because they say things we wouldn't even have thought of. And it really is, they're really trying not to look who's going to commit fraud. They're really looking at, we need to protect you against any chance of fraud happening. So it's to protect my staff and not really to accuse them of anything. Is really a protection, so that, you know, someone's looking, someone's checking, someone is approving. And I think it's going to be good once we get it implemented.
That was a great overview, Mary. I think I asked you a little bit about that last month. But does the statute that requires this, does it spell out all the different areas that you just went through, and then it's equal to apply for every district?
Yes, yes. And most of the auditing firms that audit school districts give you a checklist. They're pretty much bound by the same guidelines. Yes.
And it hasn't been changing year over year?
Oh, yes, yes.
At the end, when you present in December, when the auditors present, will there be an action plan, a corrective action plan that we will then monitor?
Yes.
Until it's all...
Mm-hmm. And I brought an audit, and what they'll do is they'll identify, if there are any conditions, they'll identify them, and then they'll say what it is and what they saw, and then we'll agreed upon corrective procedure. So yes, there's already a plan by the time you get it, because they meet with us and have an exit interview, and we're always well aware of, you know, what corrective action they need to be taken.
And do we get into a situation where some of our revenue is in jeopardy or penalties?
No, it's usually, this last year, I got a comment that my journal entries weren't in number order. So they're really, and if they are, they will contact the board. They will let the superintendent know. So usually they're not of that significance. Another one that we got a comment on was, they call them time and effort sheets. And so any employee who is split funded, they are funded out of, like say, the general fund, and then they also work with special ed and are funded out of IDEA. They have to keep a time card of what hours are spent in which. And those, we've gotten dinged on that a time or two, that we didn't have them accessible when we were here. So, we take that seriously, but it doesn't have a financial impact at this time. So, and our audits are, I tried to wait today and I somehow got kicked out, but our audits are on the website if anybody wants to see them. We always have a copy in the office if anyone would like them. Because this one is the 09-10, because we're auditing 10-11 now, so this one's a little old.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, that will take us to the performance bond update.
A few months ago, and I apologize for the delay in this, the board had taken action to do a performance audit on the 2008 bond, which was just a little under, it was $48 million in the end. We secured the services of FCS Group, and what that acronym stands for, Financial Consultant Services Group, I believe is what it is. And the gentleman's name is Peter Moy. He came down and had a visit with the board and explained the scope of his work, and he was very clear that he was not going to re-audit things that had already been audited. And so there was an agreement about that. But we had a timeline in place, then we redid the timeline, and now I apologize, but circumstances both on our side and their side have caused us a little delay in this, and like I said, I apologize. Mr. Moy is beginning to schedule the interviews. We're scheduled to have 9 sessions of interviews with stakeholders. Those will be the architects, community members, the contractor, the construction, Pence, and all of those stakeholders. And he'll gather his information and we'll move forward from there. We're hoping to get him here in the district by the end of the month. And I'll keep you abreast of the timeline as we move forward with this, and for sure the next board meeting. Any questions on performance audit or not?
So will we hear more of the details of how this is structured and the progress as it goes along next month?
And for your sake, what I can do is scan that scope that we've agreed to and fax it or email it to you, all members actually. I could have Julie send it out to you as just as a refresher of what it is.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mary.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll now move into superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. You have now heard from the people who guard our resources. And we welcome back this evening those people who are going to have to make that plan work. So today is the first day for the principals to come back. Good to see you all. And I think it's a reminder that summers seem pretty short, don't they? We're glad to have them back. This becomes a very busy time now for all of us. Our quiet time working at the district office is now over, and the phone is ringing. And it's usually the principals on the other end, because they're in a hurry to get ready for a school year. They'll be inviting teachers back before they know it, and so they've got lots of work to do between now and then. We will do our administrative retreat this week, and we have a great deal of ground to cover in that retreat. We will be going over board policies that require that we change the way we behave in the buildings. We will be going over contracts. We will be going over all the management pieces of the district. And that is tedious and long, but something we have to do each year, and something that we'll try to lighten up as much as we can, but we just have lots and lots of work to do regarding that. In that vein, too, as sometimes happens with us in the beginning of the school year, we actually have legislation now. Typically speaking, when legislators are done, it takes a period of time before the OERs are written, before it comes back to the board as a suggestion that you need to make policy changes consistent with the change in the law. This year we have an unusual one, and the principals aren't even aware of this yet, but they will be in a training in the next day or two, that one of the laws that was passed said you must begin July 1. Well, it is a law which requires us to change the way we report student absences. And as again, very typically happens, the sad events of the boy missing from the school in Portland got somebody to say, we need a new law. And so we've got to change the way our secretaries report when students are absent. From schooling, we will be training the principals, who will then be training their secretaries in doing that. Well, no, there may be some of that still. But the reason that's important for the board to consider is that before you even have a chance to look at your policy, which will come to you in the September board meeting, with our request that you do it urgently, we will actually be undertaking to obey the law before you've actually made your policy. So your policies will guide us, but before your policies are complete, we will be obeying the law and training our people as to how to do that. So, again, these are the folks you have to manage